my laptop. Okay, calling the Community Preservation Committee meeting on October 23rd, 2024. Calling to order at 6:32 p.m. Members present are myself, Gina Gasconi. I can figure out how to see this.
I'll read it. Carlton.
Thank you.
Carlton, Harry, Pat, and Jeff Merriman are on.
And you and me.
You and I.
Yep. Carlton and Gina, chair, vice chair, and chair. Okay.
I'm on too, Bill.
Bill, sorry if I missed you.
Okay. As I said, I apologize. I'm doing this in my car. I feel like a businessman doing everything at once. Okay. We call to order. Chair's comments. I'll be quick with them. First off, I would like to just say that Carlton and I have continued the officers meeting that we used to have with the former town manager. We had our first one with the acting town manager the other day. Thought it went well, and we're going to hopefully continue those monthly. We had, I know Austin will talk about this a lot more, but I just want to thank everybody who completed a survey. We had close to 180 surveys returned, which was great. Now we just have to push for attendance for the forum on November 4th. Just quickly, a couple of things on the coalition newsletter. There's a couple of grants out there now, and I don't want to take a lot of time for these, but there's a new state grant program that provides funding for open space and recreation plans. Covers preparing or updating municipal open space and rec plan, preparing grant applications, does due diligence cost land acquisition. The deadline for that is April 11th, and I'd like to encourage open space and parks and recreation to work together for that. There's a lot more about that on the coalition newsletter. Plus, there's a historic preservation grant opportunity that will help restore exterior historic preservations, finishes, fire detection, lighting, etc. The deadline for that's the matching program. The deadline for that is November 1st. So that one's kind of probably out for us. But it's a few things to consider. And I know I sound like a broken record for saying this every month. I encourage everyone to subscribe to the coalition newsletter, and if they haven't already, do it. This month there's a lot of good information on housing articles, just a wealth of information, a lot of Q&As that are applicable to every CPA. And I think that's it for my comments. Okay, next, public comments. Do we have any public here?
I don't see
I don't have any.
Okay, good. Do we have the September 25th meeting minutes, or should we defer on those?
I think we should. Personally, I've looked at it, and I think you've looked at it, and I think I've got some changes, and it may be best to postpone.
Okay.
I would move that we postpone approval of the September 25th minutes until the next meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We don't have to vote for that.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Financial reports. You have September 30th one. There wasn't too much that changed on that. Carlton, if you want to talk about that, maybe.
Yeah, very quickly, we running ahead of the budgeted from the state real estate tax adder. We're at 29% in the first quarter, so that's good news. I think we'll run well ahead of that this year. I'll quickly say the freeze restoration account under the expense budget. We've been working very hard on making sure the restoration was paid for, and I can update people later on so we can move towards the major part tonight is the survey. I just had one note. I think we closed the Old State Farm account. Is that correct?
I have to double check back. We usually don't close it until we have the final report.
Well,
So yeah, I'm gonna check with Laurie Guarini to see
Okay.
when it was closed, because I think there was like $36,000 left in it.
Yeah, there was, oh, I thought it was zero. Anyway, let's check on that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll check on that.
And the last point I would say, in terms of uncommitted funds in total, it's different categories. There's a little, about $2.4 million of unappropriated funds in the CPA accounts going forward.
Okay, good, thank you. Any questions or comments on the financial report? We are in good shape. And as Carlton said, we're ahead on the income, the tax money. Oh, I just want to jump back. I'm sorry, jump back to Chair's comments that on the coalition newsletter, there was good news. That the trust fund is trending positively. The match was predicted at 14%, but with the income being that much higher, it may jump up a few points. So that's good. Okay, sorry about that I missed that part. Okay, next we have item F. We're going to start old business, the 5-year plan. And Austin and Jen, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. It's Austin and I are happy to be here, happy to see you. We have great engagement results to share with you, and Austin is going to share his screen and go through what we learned, and so we're excited to share that, get your feedback on it, and then and just so you all know, I have another engagement I have to be at, so I'm going to be here for another 15 minutes or so, and then but you're in good hands with Austin and he can stay till the discussion's done. All right, Austin, why don't you take it away?
All right, I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. All right, can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So the survey had great responses. You got 177 responses through about 173 online responses and 4 paper copies that Carlton collected in person. So this is like 40 something responses higher than you received in the last time you updated the plan. So that's a great increase to see, and also due to the fact that the survey was open for a much shorter period of time than it was when you updated the plan last time. So there's a really great engagement push that you guys all did for the survey. So the key findings, and these are actually fairly similar to the goals and priorities from the 2020 plan. So that'll be the next part of our conversation, is how we want to carry these results forward into the plan update. But the key findings really from the survey were a priority for holistic planning and meeting multiple goals. This is similar to the previous plan's prioritization for kind of seeing compatibility between CPA categories, looking for compatibility with other community goals, with the comprehensive master plan, the housing production plan, and for using projects to meet multiple goals at the same time. So that came out in a number of suggestions through like pairing open space with community housing projects, or pairing historic preservation with community housing projects as well. Proactive and strategic management was another key one. This is a tricky one to manage for the CPA in terms of project eligibility, because the CPA can't really fund ongoing maintenance in the way that I think people really want it to. So that's a tricky thing here. But I think this speaks to the fact that people want to see a priority placed on the existing facilities that Bridgewater has. Targeting housing for affordability and seniors was another key priority. Community housing overall saw lower priority rankings in the questions, asking respondents to rank which CPA category they really prioritized for funding the most. So given that community housing was lower on people's list of priorities, there was still a significant amount of comments prioritizing senior housing and smaller units, easily maintainable units, and units that are kind of in locations that are readily accessible for seniors, closer to amenities, locations downtown, things like that. And overall, comments in all categories issued some kind of focus on downtown. This was for community housing priorities, for historic preservation priorities, for open space priorities, mostly those three, but leaning particularly toward historic preservation and community housing. So a lot of these things, comments toward the focus on downtown, kind of prioritized, again, using two categories together, like rehabilitating historic buildings downtown to use for community housing. So you can both preserve the building and meet a goal in a place where you want to rehabilitate something. So that was a kind of priority seen across multiple categories as well. Most of the survey participants live in Bridgewater year round. So is good to see some kind of local representation there. A lot of residents had been in Bridgewater, either associated or living in Bridgewater for a very long time. A full fifth of respondents had been associated with Bridgewater for over 50 years. So there's some very long-term engagement and long-term insights that were reflected in the survey. Some of these demographic responses are kind of hard to quantify or compare to census data. So it's hard to get an accurate count on the representation compared to Bridgewater's population, because of the number of people that chose to skip the demographic questions, which were optional, or select the prefer not to answer option. So these charts are here to present a comparison, but do note that it's difficult to compare in absolute numbers because of that difference. Most of the survey takers were women. This is something we tend to see fairly often. It's an odd kind of foible. So I'm not quite exactly sure about that, but I guess we can prioritize getting men to turn out to the virtual forum, get some insights there. Race and ethnicity, this was a difficult one to compare to town data, because quite a few people, 53 people skipped the question. So it makes it hard to compare to the census data there. But most respondents, the vast majority, over 80%, that did respond to this question were white. Household income, this one saw the highest number of non-responses, and this is very common in lots of surveys that we run. People don't often like to indicate their household income on this, either because it's hard to do the math on the spot to count up the people in your household, or because of privacy concerns. So this chart here really indicates that a quarter of people selected prefer not to answer, and quite a few people also skipped the question. So that's hard to compare as well. So there's a lot more data in here about the detailed kind of funding category prioritization. I forwarded this document to Gina and Carlton, who hopefully sent it along to you all. And if not, I'll forward it along to you all as well after this, so you can have a deeper dive into the data. But I think what I'd like to go on to next is a review of the guiding principles from the 2020 plan. Because a lot of these were very well supported in the comments that we're seeing, both in the focus groups and in the survey. So I think it bears not only going over them again to ensure that these are kind of accurate priorities, but are also kind of reflected in the community engagement results. So the first guiding principle from the 2020 plan, and I just pulled this quote directly from the plan itself. The first guiding principle is planning and community goals. So this is about prioritizing projects that demonstrate comprehensive planning and compatibility with other community initiatives and goals. So this is something that was very clearly reflected in the survey responses. The people wanted to see projects that carried over between multiple planning projects and planning goals that the town has active, and between multiple CPA categories as well. So this one I think was well supported. Does anyone have any comments or ways that they think they would really revise this one for the next plan? Sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Austin, may I interrupt just here for a second? I encourage CPC members to speak out, to engage in the conversation. If there's something you like, you don't like, you would like changed, we value your input as always. Thanks.
Absolutely. If you ever have, if something ever seems like, we don't really do that, or we don't really want to do that anymore, or that didn't sound like we heard that in the survey or the focus groups, just shout it out. And if it doesn't come to you right now, but you want to go through and review the survey, the full survey summary and the focus group summary later, I'm always around for a call or to provide any, or to receive any written comments. This will be kind of revised within the coming weeks as we lead up to the virtual forum on the 4th, and as we go into the November and December meeting. So we've got a little bit of time to revise these. But any comments that you provide here now are great. Writing is also good. The second guiding principle from the 2020 plan is leveraging funding. So this is encouraging projects which utilize both CPA funds and other public and private funding. Prioritizing projects where CPA funding will fill a gap or provide a critical need where funding is otherwise unavailable. This isn't something that necessarily came up in those terms in the community engagement as I read the results, but seeking cost-effective measures and cost-saving measures was something that came up quite a few times. And I think that making a good use of CPA funding and not just solely relying on it is something that sounds reflective of those results to be.
What are bargain sales?
Yeah,
That's a good.
that just means when a property owner sells the property for less than market value.
Ah, okay.
Sometimes it's because they're looking for charitable benefits, tax benefits. Could also be a combination of, wanting to see it not developed perhaps, or preserved because they have some kind of appreciation for it and want to make sure it's, so that's what that means.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on this one? How does it feel?
I personally like it. I'm not, it's kind of a challenge, but we have a number of projects that we have gotten grants on. For example, the Styles and Hart has a reimbursable grant, and so we've done that, and I think that still needs to be in here.
How would you put it in here, do you think?
I think the principle is fine as it is. I'm just saying that we have adhered to that, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's good to have a refresher on these principles as you're hoping to carry them forward as guiding. All right, we'll go to the next one. compatibility between CPA categories. So this is about encouraging projects that include eligible activities in multiple areas. This is something that came up quite a bit in the survey, especially. As I said earlier, it was something that came up quite a bit for historic preservation projects downtown, pairing these with community housing. It also came up with open space and community housing using different kind of open space conservation techniques, like incorporating green infrastructure into smaller pieces of community housing projects or historic preservation projects. So to kind of meet open space goals for small space conservation downtown or other areas within those parcels and within those specific projects. So this sounds like something that came up to me. Does anyone else have any comments or thoughts on this one?
No, I think it brings up good points, Austin. Brings up some good points.
All right, I'll go to the next one. Number 4 is longevity. So this gets at the challenge about not being able to support ongoing maintenance with CPA funds. So this requires projects to demonstrate some long-lasting benefits to the community through a plan for ongoing self-funded maintenance, a clear maintenance plan for the project, including financial and staffing needed to carry out proper case to protect the resource and community's investment. It also provides that the CPA may require a restriction to protect the nature of their investment. So this is a way to invest in some of those kind of improvements with CPA money by also getting something for it in the way of a public access easement or a deed restriction.
Well, just a quick, confirm to me that when we purchase open land for open space purposes, say it's a conservation restriction, that actually requires a restriction to be put on. Does a historic building that gets preserved require a historic preservation restriction?
Only acquisition.
Thank you. So I personally think that this is a really good thing to have in there and have a conversation around how we protect lands and other places. So what you're saying here is we could put a restriction on anything we fund with CPC if we so choose.
That's
Thank
correct. It could be a condition of the funding.
Are there any ways to put any legal teeth into the requirement to have a clear-cut maintenance plan? I mean, we could say you need a clear-cut maintenance plan, and there can be one, but how is there any leverage that we can exert to ensure that a maintenance plan is carried out, I guess is my question.
Not really, is the
That's what
short
I was
answer
afraid
of it.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about political pressure, I think, but the CPC doesn't really have
No.
can
What-
hold up the funding, I suppose, but it has to be improved and then maintained. So they need the funding to improve it. So you'll already have allocated funding.
We've tried that in our award letter and grant agreement to
Uh-huh.
state maintenance plan must be there. And we tried to do that with the memorial building, and it took yeoman's work to get the most cursory, simple maintenance plan. They kept saying, we'll have one, we'll have one. So
And there's really nothing you can do to require them to,
well, we
they actually-
conditioned it that you can't get the money until you have that plan.
No, I mean, even if you have a plan, there's nothing to say that the town will have the money to actually implement the plan.
Correct, understood. But basically trying to force it, we said we'll withhold money or final payment or approval until we get that. And that's the only lever I can think of.
And
Yeah.
Carlton, that's a good point, and Jen Drew, but that may change under new regime, when we get a new regime, uh,
Well,
just to get things to follow through.
I hear you, but I think it should be something we can point to.
True,
Yeah.
true.
That's my only comment on that one.
Right, and if we have it in writing, we can hold their feet to the fire at least somewhat. But then how do we deal with private individuals who are not part of town government? I mean, if we give money to the Tory House for preservation, for example, that's owned by a private individual, how do we exert any leverage that a maintenance plan will be carried out? I mean, we can require a maintenance plan, which is a very good first step. But, you know, how do we ensure that the maintenance will be ongoing?
I think that bill will get back to the terms of the preservation restriction, because you would, if you gave money to a private entity, I think as part of demonstrating the public purpose of
Mhm.
giving the private entity public funds, you would have a preservation restriction, even if it's not required. You know, you'd want one as a way of showing the public benefit, so that the building can never be torn down, and that you
Right,
would have
right.
some clauses in there about maintenance. And I'm sure you're probably more familiar than I am with the standard clauses that you might put in a preservation restriction about maintenance and how you would then enforce it. But I think the key to the private is how you write up that preservation restriction.
Yeah, very good advice. Thank you.
So do we think we would make any amendments to this guiding principle? Or do you think that it's good how it's written, there are just challenges in implementation? That sound like an accurate.
I'd have to think more about it, but I think it probably captures what we've talked about. It's the implementation part is what's hard.
Mhm.
I agree
Great.
too.
Great. Well, if you find yourself lying awake at night thinking about this, feel free to shoot me an email. Sometimes I have midnight thoughts and I need to email them out, so I'm always here.
All right.
The fifth one is connecting the town to the gown. So this is something that came out of the outreach process from the 2020 plan. The CPA supports projects with components that foster relationship building between BSU and the town of Bridgewater. This is not something that came up an incredibly strong amount in the engagement results for this planning process. But I think, and I have to apologize here, that asking a specific question about this guiding principle was inadvertently omitted from the survey. So people weren't primed to think about this as one of the guiding principles. So that slipped through our 2 or 3 levels of reviewing the draft survey before it went out. So people didn't necessarily have a lot to say about this in the survey. That being said, I still think it's a good guiding principle. Bridgewater State University is a huge landowner in the town. It's a huge asset and resource. And a very similar goal shows up in the comprehensive master plan from just 2 years ago. So I think that either this can be called out specifically on its own here, or it can be implied by reference to number 1, which was compatibility with other community initiatives and goals, because not just the comprehensive master plan, but other plans as well have referenced collaboration and close ties with Bridgewater State University.
I think, Austin, that's a good point to tie it in with 1. We could also ask at the public forum what people think, but my thought is not to make it a whole separate guiding principle, and maybe just put the wording in item 1 where it says community, I think it was community involvement, or community something, put including BSU. So to combine it all as one.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little bit general. I mean, with phrases like foster relationship building. I mean, they're very good relationships between the town government and the university administration. I know when I used to get, I chair the Historic District Commission. I was also a member of the faculty and a dean at the university. So I would get calls from the A&F vice president asking if a certain architectural detail that they were planning to implement was historically compatible with the era of the building and so forth. So there would be that exchange going on, and some advice that I would give. That's because I knew everybody. But I mean, it's, oh, and by the way, there are fewer students and a lot more faculty members, so that would have to be updated in the 2024.
Mhm.
There are more like 500 faculty. There are a lot of staff members too, but fewer students.
That was a comment of mine that I was going to make, but I would like a little bit more conversation around what the CPC supports projects with components that foster relationships. What, I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm not either.
You know, I
Yeah.
can I can think of one thing that, you know, the old town hall, townhouse, however you want to call it, the university, there were conversations at one point about the university using it. There were lots of things floating around, and I've had a conversation with the current president in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They don't have an interest in actually having the building or maintaining the building, that kind of thing. They're interested in programs that might be in the building in the future, whenever that happens, hopefully in my lifetime. But I that's the only thing I can think of that this would be relevant to what's going on. So it may be better to move it up somehow underneath that first principle. I think the Bridgewater State University has to be noted. Well, another thing we could have done, but never really transpired, the Old Town House needs some serious work to clean it out, document retrieval, document retention stuff. And the university had an archivist that was willing to work on that and actually put together a plan on how to triage all the documents that are in there. Now, that's not something we were funding, but that was relationship building.
That's a very good example.
Mhm.
And it actually goes both ways. So, and actually the university right now with the old mobile station, that park that's been noted, the university has pledged, I'm not sure if it's in writing, but a significant amount of money towards that park. So that's a relationship building.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing I just realized, the university accepted the town clerk had all of the historic town reports digitized, and the university accepted those and it's now in the archives over there. All those digitized documents are online at the university. So that's another relation, I guess would you call a relationship building, but it's outside of CPA.
Yep, Carlton, can I just interrupt for a second? I apologize for the background noise. Oops, now I'm in a echo. I have to jump off temporarily. I hope to jump back on. I'm leaving the committee in Carlton's hands, good hands. And he'll finish up. And Josh, can you just make sure that you make Carlton a co-host?
Yep, will do.
Okay, thank you. And I hope to hear everybody be back for the end of it. And Austin, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Gina. Yeah, I think we can move forward now.
All right, very good. So the next piece I'd like to go over is after these guiding principles, there are a set of goals for each CPA funding category. So I have this over in another sheet here. For historic preservation, first one is preserve and restore historic properties to improve public accessibility, use, and awareness of the town's local historic resources, such as town hall or the memorial building, and privately held buildings with public access.
I'll jump in quickly. We have upgraded the memorial building. CPA funds were used to install the access ramps around the building, and we've done it before. So the memorial building right now, it's probably not something I would highlight in the goal right now.
Mhm. That was one of my first questions are the specific references to particular buildings worth keeping or worth changing to different buildings that have become priorities or worth removing altogether?
Well, are we talking municipal buildings or privately held?
This appears to be both, which is totally fine.
So the survey, I don't want to dominate here, but the survey did include a number of the Virginia block, the Mitchell block. There's another block on the other side of the street. So there are potential things that were noted in the survey. So maybe we can add a little, change the details there a little bit. Different buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And historic properties includes cemeteries. It includes the key word is historic properties. So the town owns, town is responsible for 13 historic cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I had on that one. Others?
Now, is this from 2020? Yeah, this is from 2020.
Correct.
So, I mean, can't emphasize enough how important number 2 is. And since 2020, we really haven't done anything to create a permanent facility to house historic artifacts in the town of Bridgewater. We've done a great job preserving buildings, but as far as the artifacts go, we don't really have a proper facility for housing historic artifacts. Digitization is very important, and we're doing more of that, but we don't have a museum or any kind of facility like that. So I would like to see number 2 emphasized.
I concur with that, but I also don't think digitization is exactly historic preservation.
No, it isn't. It isn't, of course.
And sometimes
digitization enables scholars to examine other documents, scholars from all over the world. That's the advantage of digitization. But
so I'm a little bit concerned about the use of the word documents through preservation of documents through digitization. I think that's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does one preclude the other? I mean, I shouldn't think that digitization would preclude preservation of documents. I mean, I don't know of a library or a museum that would digitize something and then destroy the document. The documents need to be preserved, and they need to be digitized at the same time.
I hear you on that. I just want to make sure people don't think digitization is the end all of preservation. It preserves the words and makes them searchable, absolutely, but it does not pervade. We just got a book back that was preserved. The binding was split apart. It was preserved and digitized, and it's been put back together. We just received notice that it's returned to the town academy building, to the town clerk's office. So I want to hear other people chime in on this, but I don't want to belabor it right now. I just want us to think about what that really means.
Well, I'm concerned about the accessibility to these documents. I mean, where are they? They should be in a single facility somewhere so people can have access to them in some kind of building or museum where these documents can be viewed. Somebody in Germany may want to look at the digitization version, but other scholars and just people in town would probably like to see historic documents displayed. And we really don't have a central reservoir for all these documents. They're just scattered all over town in various offices. And I mean, most towns the size of Bridgewater have museums, small town museums. I mean, even Middleborough has museums. And we don't have that, which I think is very unfortunate because we're a very old town. We're a 17th century town. So I think that's very important.
So do you think revising the sentence, so through digitization and the creation of permanent facilities to house the original resources for public display? Does that sound more accurate of what you're going for?
Public display and access. I mean, I don't think they necessarily should be displayed all the time. I mean, certain historic documents, I mean, they don't need to be displayed, but people need access to them, in the proper environments.
I'd like to hear from other people, but I do have one comment. But I'd like to hear other people first.
I mean, we tried, I just want to add this last bit. We tried very hard to get the memorial building to be used as a museum. And we were not successful in that. It was beyond our pay grade, I guess. It did not happen. And is a water and sewer department, I think, is there now. I won't talk about the irony of that, but
there are departments in there right now.
Sorry,
there are departments in there right now, including
right.
DPU.
Yeah, I mean, it's too late at this
it's
point.
too late. Well,
But
there's other ways you could deal with it, but
yeah. Is it possible to do something in the town hall, for example, to use some of that space?
You mean the old town hall?
Yeah, the old town hall. Yeah, yeah.
That's my thing.
Sorry, townhouse.
Yeah, that's my thinking. Was my comment was going to be, when we reuse the townhouse, there could be an area set aside for artifacts. If they're big artifacts, it would take a whole lot more to put it in the basement. But there are some historic artifacts already in the basement. So I think the point is very much to clarify exactly what this means in accessibility, like Bill said. And I do want to hear from other people. Don't everybody speak at once. Okay, let's keep moving.
Bill, I agree with you. I didn't know about the museum thing with the memorial building.
It was originally written up, and I wrote the history on it. It was originally as a memorial to the Civil War dead from Bridgewater. 2 was a public library, and 3 was display of historic artifacts. That was what the town meeting back then passed it for.
Oh.
And I can send you the report I did on it at some point.
That was excellent, an excellent report. And now it houses the water and sewer department.
And it does have a climate controlled archival room. I will give it that.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect. But has that ship sailed? Like, it's nothing you can do about it.
The other thing is that's happening. I guess the library has just in the process of undergoing a, top to bottom, inside outside review of the building structure, use, all that kind of stuff. So the public library is undergoing a significant study on what it needs to have happen in the future.
Well,
So I don't know where that's at. They may come to CPC at some point.
well, I was gonna save this for the updates at the end of our meeting, but it appears that 96 Main Street has stalled out. If that were to fall, if that were to stop, do you think that building would make a good museum?
Well, it's awfully large, but it's a great, I'm glad it's stalled. So it's not been torn down or so forth and so on.
No, the
Mhm.
contractors haven't submitted a plan. They've been waiting.
So the developers are still trying to think about what they're going to do.
I think so.
Interesting.
I mean, it's a fabulous building. Maybe it could have multi-purposes.
Yeah.
So we need to keep moving forward because we've got some more ground
Yes,
to cover
sorry.
here. But that's a really good point. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, these are very good comments. All right, let's move to number 3. Preserve historic resources from development or deterioration through increased local, state, and federal historic designations and other mechanisms to encourage and support preservation.
I just looked at the Macris site, and there are a huge number of historic houses in the downtown area and then scattered throughout town, to include some of the buildings on Main Street in the downtown area. I don't know if those houses can be upgraded or not, but I don't preserve historic resources. I'm not sure the meaning there, from development or deterioration through increased state, local, federal historic designations. Lots of the historic towns have been designated already. They're in Macris. And I don't know how you can designate stuff that's 70 years old. I know that the public library, because I looked it up, is also listed, and it was built in 1971, the current library main building. So I think people need to think about this goal a little bit more, personally.
Yeah.
This is
I
a
mean,
goal.
the historic district was about 3 times the proposed historic district that we established in the 80s was about 3 times the size of the one that was approved in town meeting vote. And we kept, I wasn't involved at that point, but I know the background of the process, and had to keep reducing the size of the historic district in order to get it through town meeting, because the individuals who lived in some of these historic houses on Main Street, for example, did not want historic district commissions to dictate colors and changes and to have authority over any renovations or changes that they wanted to make in the exterior of those buildings. They felt it was too intrusive. So we had to keep paring down the size of the historic district in order to get it through town meeting. And I guess the question is, should we start trying to expand the historic district? I'm afraid we might meet with some of the same objections that we met with in the 80s. Of course, there's no town meeting anymore, and historic districts would have to be approved by the town council instead of by town meeting vote.
Anybody else have thoughts on it? If not, let's move on. I think we may need to wordsmith that a little bit more, but that's a little bit down the road.
All right. Number 4 is rehabilitate commercial facades and other historic resources such as town hall or the nearby memorial building to boost downtown economic revitalization.
One of the critical things there would be the Mitchell Block, the whole program that's trying to redevelop downtown. You know, some people were going to say they need to take down the Mitchell Block or the Virginia building because they're in such bad repair and it's going to cost too much to bring them up to code. But if you're going to name anything here, goal-wise, it would be all the historic buildings around Central Square. And make it more general, I think, rather than specific. Again, memorial buildings been done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The town hall is townhouse. Should we
Yeah.
make that? That's been done too. The facade has.
Well, yes, the facade has been done in 2 different times, 2007 and 2023,
Yeah.
22. So I think we could generalize that a little bit more and maybe refocus, especially says it's a downtown economic revitalization. We could
Mhm.
tie that to the process that's ongoing now for downtown revitalization. I can't ever remember the exact name of it, but you could specify it, tying it to whatever Bob Ruley calls it, you know, specific specific branding for doing that development.
All right, that sounds good. Number 5 is preserve and restore outdoor historic public places and public monuments.
Anybody want to change it? Add it? Modify it? If not, I think I personally I think it stays in there as is.
I mean,
that-
the public historic, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the public historic places would include the common, of course.
Yep. And it could be some of the parks, like the Titicut Park.
Yes, yep, true.
Could be, because that has indigenous, huge, significant indigenous peoples history. But the Ironworks Park, which has lost some of its luster because the dam was removed, and the bridge, the 1771 bridge is gone now. That's in this. That was historically designated. It hasn't been fixed in the Macris in terms of that it's now no longer existent. But there are lots of historic places like cemeteries. The monuments that are there would be the monuments that are on Central Square, the common.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pat,
Well-
Harry, anybody have a comment?
I'm good with that. It's fine.
Thank you. Let's move on.
All right. For community housing, the first goal from the 2020 plan is create and preserve affordable housing options for older residents to allow them to stay in the community as they age, prioritizing locations that provide easy access to services and other resources. This is one that definitely came up in engagement.
A good site for this would be for CPC to do the Bridgewater nursing.
Say that again, please, Pat.
I think I mentioned to you before, it'd be nice if we could do something with the Bridgewater nursing home with senior housing where it's closed.
Yep,
Yep.
that came up in the specific comments. I saw that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so did I.
Mhm.
And the other thing I would only ask on that one is the word older residents. What's the more recent? Is it senior residents? Is it people over 65, over 55? You know, I don't know what. Is there some kind of better word than older people, because that's pretty undefined?
Yeah. I think if you say seniors, people assume 65 plus, like as a general rule. So I think that would be more specific and more common, perhaps.
Okay, but then
Which-
we also have ordinances going forward for 55 and over housing, so.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder what term they use. I guess they just say 55 plus.
Yeah, that we have a large two developments that are over 55, and there's some zoning changes that I've heard about. I haven't studied them. But if there's nothing, if older is sufficient, that's fine. But by the survey, I took a look and I looked at the survey and something like lived in town. Okay, 38% of the respondents were 65 and older, and 55% of the respondents were 25 years and older. So let's define older better.
Well, perhaps it's easy to say 55 plus if that aligns more closely with the law.
Yeah.
Would 55 plus housing be eligible for affordable housing?
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
I don't think there has to be. I know about it, but I don't think I don't think there's contours at LHI anymore. I'm not sure about that though.
Let's just put a question mark and say, let's dig it a little bit more. Figure it out. I know Jen has huge background in affordable housing, so maybe that's something she could chime in on when she hears this.
Yeah, I'll definitely run that by Jen. So number 2 for community housing is create affordable and community housing through the adaptive reuse of existing buildings, specifically historic properties.
I think we heard about one of those already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So many towns have taken brick mill buildings that were abandoned and converted them into affordable housing units. We don't have anything like that. We have the one old shoe factory, but I'm not sure how historic that is.
It's rather historic.
It's somewhat. I mean, it's
not on the list.
probably been changed a lot.
That's well,
Do you think it's worth calling out any specific properties here, or just keeping it more general?
I believe the old McElwain factory building is scheduled to be taken down. Last I heard, I don't know if they have a period of performance, but there was a plan put forward that went before the planning board. So I just don't know where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think number 2 is worth keeping there. We don't have, other than the one building we talked about it on Summer and not Summer, but South and Pleasant Main Street. I'll get it right. South and Pleasant Street, South and Pleasant Street. That housing is for sale. That's the only one I can think of, but there's probably other ones.
So I think it's worth keeping for sure.
I agree.
All right. Number 3 is support a variety of affordable and community housing options specifically for young individuals, young families, and entry-level housing.
Can we add veterans to that?
Absolutely.
And also, my sister-in-law created a small house project in California where she was the town a city planner. I think there's some real potential options to look at. I use the term small house. I don't know what she called it, but I think there's some options there for smaller abodes.
Yeah, smaller housing units and veterans definitely came up in the engagement results. So it's definitely worth specifying those.
Other people? Let's move on.
All right, next up, number 4, preserve long-term affordability for existing affordable and community housing units and preserve them through eligible repairs and improvements.
Ooh, repairs.
Hmm.
The one thing that happens there is the housing authority and the support term that we're allowed to support that kind of housing units. And it's we are funding. We have provided over $300,000 for door and window upgrades in that set of buildings. And it's through the support function.
Mhm.
It could be preserve and support, something like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And there was a lot of conversation around in the past about how providing CPA funds to a state or state-run agency. And there's lots of information around it, but I do notice that it's maybe being done more often with CPA funds. I don't have data for that though. So I say keep it, maybe edit it a little bit. Others?
Yes.
Yeah, the word repairs has to come out.
Good point. And improvements, well, that goes to the climate change. One of the things they're doing at the affordable housing, one of the things they're doing is they've got air leaks and all sorts of stuff. And so people are using more heating elements and it all goes to sustainability. And that came up a lot of times in the survey too, sustainability. So maybe that gets merged in there somehow. Just the word sustainable. I have to think more about it. I can't do it on the fly.
That is totally fine. I also think much better when I'm writing. So if you want to send me an email later with any thoughts, feel free.
The problem is you can type and I can't.
Well,
Anyway,
voicemails
anybody
work
else?
too.
We're running along here, so let's move
Yeah.
on if we can.
Sure. My apologies for running long.
No problem.
So open space and passive recreation. Number 1 is preserve Bridgewater's farms and agricultural lands.
Keep it.
Anybody in opposition?
No, I say keep it. I think it's important. This is Gina. I'm
Very
back
important.
again.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Number 2 is preserve and restore existing natural open space and passive recreation facilities, specifically enhancing safety and public access.
What does restore existing natural open spaces mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering if restore is more about access.
I think so. And there's a word that should be in there, create. The word create is missing because that's part of what we can do with open space. Well, the last number 4 is create, preserve, and acquire neighborhood level open space. So maybe it's in there, but maybe that should be number 1.
Maybe restore means planting, trees and bushes that are native.
Hmm.
Indigenous species, yeah. Meaning the plant type, not the human.
Mhm. One other thing that I think came up in the engagement fairly often was public access and accessibility. I think that's something that came up particularly with not just active recreation spaces, but also passive recreation spaces, making sure that people can more easily get to them and get
Well,
around them.
That comes up very frequently in conservation restrictions like we have now. We're negotiating the final pieces on the Hanson Farm. But that comes up in terms of access, enhancement, and there's lots of stuff around that through those kinds of restrictions.
Mhm,
That's for passive.
mhm, mhm. All right, any other comments on that one?
Where would town ponds fall into this area? Would that be considered open space? Probably not. I mean, we mentioned number 3, which is excellent, by the way. That's a wonderful uh a wonderful sentence. But some of the ponds in town, which I assume are owned by the town, need to be restored, cleaned, and so forth and so on. Is that part of our purview, Carlton? Or, I mean, I hate to see these ponds just become overgrown.
You know,
It's not
I don't have an answer for that, but we can reach out to the coalition, or maybe Austin can reach out to the coalition.
Yeah, yeah, I'll do some research on that.
because I don't know.
And lakes, you know, that kind of thing. You know, you
Right.
think about the Nip, you think about Carver's Pond, that has huge historic value because there used to be mills on there. But then there's Sturdivant's Pond, which used to have a mill on it down by Titicut Bridge. And I don't know the condition of those. As an ecosystem scientist, I think a lot of that's very good stuff. I just don't know if it's allowed. Maybe that's an open space issue too. The open space plan has to be updated soon, so maybe that's it.
I mean, there's a nice pond on South Street that is just, it's going to be destroyed by vegetation and all kinds of growth. And that's certainly affecting wildlife habitats. And you know, nothing's ever done about it to clean it. I assume the town owns it. I don't know.
I'd have to research it.
Yeah.
Bill,
The other thing-
are you talking away at the end of South Street, Sturdivant's Pond?
Not that one. The one on the corner of Cross and South. Down just a little bit from Cross Street.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I
it was a
didn't realize
beautiful.
that was a pond.
It was a beautiful pond at one point, and now it's just overgrown and just, it's very unfortunate.
Mhm.
And the question there is it private or public land?
Yeah.
I want to say it's private because it seems to me, and I'm not sure how much of that area, but it
Uh-huh.
seems to me years ago, I remember the owners going to the town and asking if they wanted to accept or buy the, I don't know if they were giving it or trying to sell it to the town as open space, and CPC said no, because it wasn't worth anything.
Oh.
But so if it's the same parcel, it may be privately owned,
Yeah.
at least part of it.
And if it's privately owned, then the town can't do anything to enforce maintenance of it, I guess.
Right, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say not, but I'm not positive, so I would defer to Austin and Hal, who would know.
I'm going to ask a little bit more priority wildlife habitats. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. I don't know what that is, but I do know that there is some people, I'll say it again, some people are thinking we need to put a conservation restriction on the golf course. That would be one of the primary potentially areas that have wildlife habitats.
Yes,
And
yes.
that is an Audubon. I don't know who Audubon recognizes it for some species or something. So do we need a CR on that?
Yeah.
It's town-owned property, but I think is that a goal or is that project. I'm not sure. I'll let Austin wordsmith it.
I'll put my brain on it. All right, 3 sounded pretty popular. Water resources in general were very popular in the survey responses. So number 4 is create, preserve, and acquire neighborhood level open spaces for pocket parks, community gardens, and other outdoor gathering spaces.
I think that's great. There is a move afoot for the Town River Landing property. There is a move afoot. I did not realize it, but they're trying to make that a park right now. They're trying to work through and apply for park designation there. I had a long conversation with the folks that hold the lease on the property now, and a very interesting conversation. But I think the Town River Landing parcel could be called out here as an example.
Good. Yeah, I think the pocket parks, I actually just participated in something online. I'm not sure if it was All Trails or it was one of those groups, and they were promoting pocket parks. They said they would like to see, which I don't think this would work for Bridgewater, but a park for everybody within 10 walking minutes of their homes. I mean, I have one if I walk fast enough to it, but most people don't. But I think that even one on each end of town would be good.
So do you think it's worth revising this in any way to specify that you want each neighborhood or in each corner of town to have such and such?
Well,
or
I would make it a little more, say each precinct. We have 9 precincts, so that captures a little bit more, beyond neighborhoods. But we also have an awful lot of conservation land that's accessible for walking and that kind of stuff along the river and that kind of place. So this starts to focus in more on the smaller parcels.
And that's one of the things that I know we'll talk about it later in the meeting, but as potential projects. But one of the things that we've talked about is that came to me through the focus group was to do a plan for open space. And that goes along with the new grant program too. So yeah, I'd like to see as many small parks as possible. The downside to that is if Parks and Rec is responsible for it, we have 1.5 employees and this one of the smallest budgets in town. So that's just a downside of it. But do I think it should be a goal? Yes, I do.
There's always room to create some sort of, or to support the creation of some sort of friends of the park group to handle some of that maintenance and costs.
That's true. Good point, Austin.
It's a good note to put there somewhere.
All right.
I think we'll get more input later, but let's move on.
Yeah, okay. Active Rec. This one will be easy. Rehabilitate and restore existing parks, playgrounds, and other recreational facilities such as Jenny Leonard Park or Marathon Park.
Good. I would put in future parks. How was the beginning of that sentence again? I apologize. I don't have it. I'm looking on my phone at the small print.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's
No, that's
rehabilitate
okay.
or restore existing parks, playgrounds, and other recreational facilities.
Okay, it says existing. Okay.
Yeah. So the second one is rehabilitate existing or create new facilities.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Do we need to rehabilitate the existing in that? Or do we simply say create new? Or it's somewhat redundant, right?
You know, I think this one is actually more about improving safety and public access. I think that's more what this one is about.
Good point.
Okay,
And to be honest with you, Stiles and Hart is to have a full upgrade paid by CPC and grant funds. So that
Mhm.
may not be the best example. It might be Titicut Park down south, or it could be, geez, there's so many, there's 6 of them.
yeah, even Carver's Pond, the trails are pretty good. I don't know. Oh, somebody else was saying something. I don't want to cut somebody off. Maybe it was just backfeed for me. Yeah, any of the other trails, Stanley Ironworks is a short trail. I haven't walked that recently. I know the one, I can't think of it. It's on High Street, Tuckerwood, Tuckerman, Tuckerwood. I think it's Tuckerwood.
Yeah.
We tried to walk that one time. We had a heck of a time
It,
finding
it,
trails.
I walked it when they did the open space plan, and it is a challenge because you have to go under a power line and out to the river. And the parking it's a tiny parking lot. It's pretty isolated. So there could be public safety issues around that one.
Yeah, that's a good idea to put for an example.
All right, great. Number 3 is create a comprehensive and connected bike and walking path network.
Still legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very long-term goal. That's not a 5-year accomplishment.
Very long term.
All right. Number 4 is create and restore access to the town river or other water bodies for canoes and kayak access.
I think that's still good.
It's good, but I would put an example. When the bridge was taken out and the dam taken out on the Ironworks Park, they put a canoe access. At low water, you have to go across 2 to 4 foot boulders and get through that. And when it's high water, it runs like a White River for rafting. That access is not safe as far as I'm concerned. It's on private land, and potentially that owner has he could be liable if something happened. What I think needs to be considered is down with the Ironworks Park, the river's on one side, and there's a canal that was constructed back in the 1800s. They merged down at the end, and there's a very nice area down there that could be made into into smooth water, fast flowing, but on the right side where the canal is, it's a backwater, so it doesn't flow. So you could have a very safe canoe input there. And I would suggest that would be something that could be done in that park. That's up to other people, but I've been thinking about it when I saw that canoe launch that was being put in, it was like, why are they doing it here?
Can there be a canoe launch at Stiles and Hart? And over the back where the river flows, it's kind of steep down. But I guess it's steep everywhere. But that would be a good spot.
I had suggested that, and I think that's somewhere in one of the plans, but it would be a steep and off one of the accessible trails. But that would be another potential for putting one in. What's not possible is a bridge from the Town River Landing to Stiles and Hart. That would cost us $2 to $3 million just to put a bridge in there.
Right. Harry, do you know any parts of Stiles and Hart that would be a possible canoe launch or kayak?
Let's see. I'd have to look again, but when the water's low, I don't think there's too many areas that you can do it in.
Right.
We do have Monica, who's she's doing all the canoe sites and launches. So I'd have to check with her. She's
Right.
doing all the trees down and everything, trying to get them removed.
Yeah, she did a lot a few years back. She asked me if I wanted to help her trim some things at Styles and Hart. I said, sure. She showed up with her chainsaws and wheelbarrows, and so yeah, she's good at that. Yep. Okay.
All right, so we'll keep thinking about that one. Number 5 is create outdoor recreational facilities that cater to older residents and individuals with special needs, such as pickleball courts and ADA accessible facilities.
I say keep it.
Yeah.
I did tennis courts. People keep asking about tennis courts.
So that's a such as.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, we have potential things happening that could address that one, but I think having it in the goals for the next plan is important.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Great. Any other
How are we doing
comments
on
there?
time? Austin, how are we doing on your time?
Me personally, great. But I don't want to keep you all too late. So that is all of the principles and all of the goals from the previous plan. So we've talked about those. One other thing I'd like to talk about briefly is the schedule upcoming.
Hey, could I just interrupt for a second? You
Yeah,
had
please.
you had a couple of suggestions in one of the memos you sent us. I don't know if everybody else has had a chance, but I saw a couple of suggestions for ads. Would you want to go to those?
Sure, yeah.
Let's just complete this.
Yeah. So this is the memo I sent based on the existing goals and priorities and any suggestions based on potential changes in community support.
And I also, just so you know, I forwarded your whole email to the membership.
Great. Thank you. I
thing,
appreciate
so
that.
they could read whatever we saw too.
And I think we've addressed the downtown priority one already.
I think so. Yeah.
And then what I really like is the historic preservation, focusing on indigenous history, lands and sites. The one I can think of right now is Titicut. That has been it has a huge history because it was excavated years ago, and that could be a really great place to put some additional knowledge in walking. It's wide open walking. It used to be an old boat building area. It's got a beautiful history that could be expanded on.
That's a good point. I think that may fit in well. Let's see, historic preservation. That could even fit in well here, because this is about outdoor public historic places and monuments.
Yeah, you could put in there something like, for example, Titicut, because that is archaeologically significant. So you got to be really careful what you do there.
Great. One other one that was kind of came up in the engagement was permission of cost saving measures in historic projects. I think this is perhaps a sensitive issue because there were some suggestions like allowing like plastic siding or something like that in historic preservation projects to keep the vibe, but maybe save some cost, and not just on like capital expenses upfront, but on ongoing maintenance for the owners. So that aligns with the longevity principle, but whether you want to incorporate it as a goal or include it in some other goal in historic preservation would be up to you all.
I can depend on, Bill can answer this better than me, but basically if you do restorations of buildings, you have to use correct materials, and I think there's a whole list of appropriate materials. So I think recognizing that any exterior renovations, restorations need to adhere to federal building requirements. I may be totally off base, but that's what I think.
Well, I mean, if a restoration project is in the historic district, then we would have total control over materials and everything else. But what if they're outside the historic district? Then we wouldn't have any control, but the town certainly should have some kind of control. I don't know whether they would exert any control based on the Department of Interior guidelines for restoration. They're very specific. You're familiar with those, Carlton, some of those relating to the house at Lake Nip. I've forgotten the name of that house now.
The Keith House, yes.
The Keith House.
The Keith House, yes, thank you. And those restrictions were all part of the recommendations from Department of Interior.
Right. I think you're right. And the point there would be recognize that any CPA funds that are used for historic structures, restoration, renovation, whatever, must adhere to historic national park guidance rules, whatever the right word is.
Does the historical commission have any say in this? Like historic buildings that aren't in the historical district?
Where's our rep? What is he gone? The historic commission
No,
representative.
I'm
No,
there you
thinking
Deborah's
go.
about
still
it.
there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yep.
That'd probably be something I'd confer with Dave about.
Mhm.
I think,
Right.
I personally think it's through preservation restrictions, that kind of thing. So, but I think it's worth, I'm not sure what else to say other than take a look at that and see if we can incorporate that in some way.
I mean,
I do
if we're funding or even partially funding preservation efforts, then we should be able to recommend or even require that certain guidelines be followed.
And I believe the historic recent roof and hidden gutter stuff all was developed through an expert historical architect to be consistent with all those rules. So, but I don't think we call it out specifically anywhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, that would be true for public buildings owned by the town. But again, what about privately owned buildings and houses?
If they're on the register, then I think you have a little bit of muscle to actually say any restorations exterior must adhere to.
That's if they're on the register. What if it's a historical dwelling, historical building in general?
What if it's in the Macris listing? Maybe we could make that designation.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, if it's in the Macris listing, then we can require historically appropriate restoration based on the guidelines of the Department of Interior. They are strict. They're stricter than even state historic district guidelines. They're the strictest, the Federal Department of Interior.
And I think the McElwain development, they bought that house. That house, when they took off the plastic cladding and that kind of stuff, they found features in there that were little triangular pieces that were above windows, and the openings were there, and they re-engineered and restored those. So they did a really good restoration. That could have been listed. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
But that's where I think we need text around this.
I agree. Yep.
All right, I'll make a note of that.
Thank you. Open space goals, I think we probably hit all of those. Well, the
Yeah.
climate change one barely, but in sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so climate change and green infrastructure. This was the green infrastructure one was interesting. There were a few comments that were kind of looking for open space, green infrastructure projects that are on a smaller scale. Like I think that would go along with like little micro parks, pocket parks,
Yeah,
things like that, that would serve a dual purpose of not just being like open space access, but would also be some kind of stormwater management through green infrastructure, something like that.
maybe you can integrate what you just said into what we talked about before.
Yeah, great.
Because that way we'll have a clear thing to talk about and finalize when we get to that stage.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the other one for open space and passive rec
Yeah.
was purchase of
I'm-
parcels. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a statement about the new fire station. That was originally that parcel was originally gifted to the town from the Tool family for recreational purposes. They set aside a significant amount of money that has grown over the years. When the fire station came into play, and that was identified as the best parcel to put the new fire station, they had to go back to the Tool family and renegotiate some of that, and they did renegotiate it. And as a result, there's a small playground park area going to be on the back side of that in order to be consistent with what the Tool family wanted in the past. So the new fire station is really not in play for any of this right now. It's been dealt with.
Gotcha. That's very helpful context.
And one of the ideas that's been floated is maybe have a trail go from that park area on the Tool family down the power line all the way over across Scotland Boulevard and then connect with the Murray Needs farm. And I know that former town manager had actually said that at one point. That's just a potential dream, but there's wetlands and that kind of stuff, so it could be too much of a challenge. But that's the kind of thing that I think we're trying to connect. That goes to the connectivity of different walking trails. It will connect to the style Murray Needs farm. In the future, it may potentially connect to the Hanson farm, what their access and conservation restriction requirements. So there's lots of things that we've said in the priorities and goals that may be handleable here.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to use so many words.
No, that's very helpful.
Anybody else have comments on that so we can move forward?
No, Austin, because I jumped off the meeting and back on, you covered all 4 of those documents that you sent us?
No, we're working on them. We're working on them.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't sure what part we're on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're just on the goals, the principles and goals. We're just finishing that.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So for community housing goals, potential new priorities were kind of support for the Affordable Housing Trust as it gets up and running, both through funding allocation and potential support of training for the new members. This was one of the things that came up in the focus groups.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on around that trust right now. I'm not sure what to say other than leave this where it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think supporting the housing coordinator, a shared position, we tried that in the past. It was not terribly successful, and it's basically been abandoned. But I think it's a good thing to keep.
Mm-hmm.
But it implies that we could fund support for a position And we couldn't do that with CPC funds.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think not, but I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, this is our plan. This is our document. So I'm not sure we can say that we would fund funding support
Yeah,
or
I
housing
concur.
coordinator. I don't know exactly what that means.
Maybe that's something Jen could address more because she's got, I think, deeper knowledge than certainly I have,
yeah.
and I think
I'll-
anybody here.
But it does imply that we would
Yeah,
pay for part of the position, which we
Yeah.
could not do. I don't
Okay.
Yeah,
think.
I'll ask Jen how to address that.
Thank you.
The next up is prioritizing accessibility in housing developments. I think this is something that's to some degree covered in the existing priorities.
Yeah, I think that's true because that's what we funded the memorial building for accessibility there. So I think you just ask you to check that one and make sure it's captured in the things we talked about before. You know, if a few words would add clarity to what we can do, so down futures, the new members could read this thing and say, oh yeah, now I understand, that'd be great.
Mhm. Sounds great. Okay. Yeah, and then I concluded here just saying that many of the existing goals and priorities from the 2020 plan seem to be very applicable. So that's just what we've been going over now. So one other document that I sent over, and I'll go over this briefly in the interest of time, is the draft plan, which is just in kind of a template form right now, because as these guiding principles and goals get ironed out over the next few weeks, those will get filled in. And then I'll put in some more research examples and information for context for each of those goals. So as it is now, table of contents. And some of the things that usually come at the beginning, the abbreviations and the definitions, we've moved to the end. So they're still accessible in the plan, but they're not kind of clogging up the beginning. So it gets right into the acknowledgements and the executive summary, which gives a brief overview of the CPA in general, background of the CPA, the planning process to create this plan. And so there are some placeholders where I'll update it once we know a total number of people that participate in the virtual forum coming up on the 4th.
You may want to put in there somewhere a reference that we do have a written policies and procedures document that it was intended to guide anybody old and new in terms of how we do business. So you might want to, I'm not sure where to put it, but just, I think it should be referenced and there's a link to it on the web. It's on the website.
Gotcha. I will incorporate that. And the guiding principles section will be right here. Once we iron these out and amend the text, we'll come to the virtual forum on the 4th and present these again to get more feedback from the public, and then revise them again with you all. And then they'll go right in here. The goals will also go right in here for each category with all of the text. And then after that, there's some more intro about the plan itself, about why the Community Preservation Committee has to do a plan or has to study the needs and possibilities and resources. A little bit about Bridgewater in general. And so background against the CPA, how the funding is spent, the role of the Community Preservation Committee, how much funding is available. And so here I go into the CPA revenue from 2006 when when you all approved the CPA for Bridgewater, and along with the estimated funding for the next 5 years from the finance department. So there's a lot of numbers in here, and I'd invite you to go over it later tonight, or maybe even not tonight, but tomorrow morning.
I will point out that the estimated funding is extremely conservative. We've exceeded our local revenues by 10 to 20% for the last 3 or 4 years, but we do it very conservatively.
Yeah, that's right. And then there is estimated CPA funds available for appropriation for fiscal year 25, including the revenue budget, expense budget, estimated available for new project appropriations.
Yeah, we can update that based on this September, the first quarter financial that we just got. If you don't have it, we can send it to you.
Would it, we separated the Keith Homestead debt payment from the Academy Building debt payment? Why did we combine that? Because we owe very little on the Keith house, as I remember, right?
The Keith Howe bonding ends in 2026, so we should separate them.
Yeah.
We'll separate those two. And so the reserve fund balances, this is at the end of fiscal year 2024. So as of the end of June.
If that's into June, we can update those now because we have updated balances because of end of year money movements, that kind of thing, and closing projects. So I would definitely update that to the September one at the minimum.
Gotcha.
Do you need us to forward you the report?
No, I have all of the info from the. I think I don't actually have the September monthly one.
Yeah,
but
we can forward that. We can forward that.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
I'll take that action.
Thank you. So some information about bonding and when those two bonds mature. Information about CPA funded projects from 2019 to 2024. 2019 is chosen because it's the last time that we were doing this planning process. So it's kind of an update of that since the last plan, the last 5 years.
Is it worth having one that's from the inception?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would suggest that you could do that and just add, let's look at what the history is. But also the last 5 years, because we've really done a lot of open space the last 5 years and historic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a full chart from 2006 would give more context for sure.
Thank you.
So then there's more info about the planning process, talking about how me and Jen, how our team has done our work on this process and collaborated with you all. Info about the focus groups, kind of a brief summary of how that process went, how many people joined, the survey, when it was open, how it was advertised, and how many people contributed. And then the online forum to be held on the 4th. So once we know how many people attended, we'll put that in here as well.
Will the results you showed us tonight, that report be appended to the document? The results of the survey?
Yes, yeah. So the full survey results with all of the comments and everything, as well as the focus groups with all of the transcriptions, will be in the appendix of the plan. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the public meeting to present the final draft, which is currently scheduled for tentatively for January, once we know the date. And then info about the application and funding process. I think this might be an appropriate place to call out the policies and procedures, perhaps.
Point. I don't know if it's in there, but Gina and I did a public, whatever you call, PSA, public service announcement about the forum that's coming up. We did that last week. It's playing on BTV.
Yes, did include that.
Okay.
That is awesome. I hope that went really well.
I'm afraid to watch it.
I would, I would hate to look at myself on TV too. So then there's just info about general CPA eligibility. A lot of this is very similar to the last plan, all of the kind of general, all about the CPA eligibility, how the CPA works is the same as the last plan, as there have been no real updates there. So the guiding principles, once these are revised, they'll be in more full text here. And then each chapter has the eligible activities section talking about what is eligible for each CPA funding category. The goals and priorities that are specific for that funding category, which will be put in here once we have those revised versions. The 5-year budget, and this is as of end of fiscal year 2024, so I'll update that as well. And so this kind of format for the chapter is the same for each one. So there'll be the eligible activities, goals and priorities, 5-year budget, and then the profile. So this is the data profile of background information that I had pulled and presented to you all earlier this year. So that's all the same as those revisions had been made based on your comments from last time. And that is including the maps and the information. So that is the structure of the chapters. And then after the chapters, there is the appendices, which include the eligibility matrix just in general. The project schedule, which once I have the project schedule kind of finalized with the dates and things, I'll put that in here for transparency of how this process went down. And then the full community engagement results. So this will include the focus group summary with all of those raw transcripts, the survey summary with the raw comments, and a summary of the open house with a summary of comments from that as well.
So quick, the open house is actually the online forum.
That's true. Wrong term. Thank you for catching that.
It's okay. That's what I do. Some people don't like it.
No, it's good. And then at the end, there's all the acronyms and abbreviations. So it's good to get this stuff at the end so it doesn't clog up the beginning, but it's still accessible. So that is the structure of the plan as it is now. And I sent this document to you all. So if you want to review it in more detail and provide any comments on this format of the template, I'm happy to receive them. I'll be revising this in the next few weeks based on the guiding principles and the goals and all of the comments that we receive at the virtual forum on those as well. So this will be seeing some more changes in the coming weeks. So
I noticed one. Oh, sorry. I did notice one minor error in a percentile under the survey results at the beginning. It says connection to Bridgewater, most respondents, and it says 165 or 19%. And I noticed in the previous paragraph, it said there were 177 participants. So 165 would be a higher percentage than 19, I think.
93.2.
Absolutely right. Carlton caught that one and sent me an email about it.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No, that's
I'm glad I wasn't wrong.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I know it's not 19.
It's definitely 3%. I had caught that, and then when I was reading the documents the other night the other morning at 2 o'clock, it's like I got to write to Austin. I didn't. I mentioned it to Carlton, and he wrote it.
Well, I appreciate
Okay.
all of your careful eyes on this. It's very, very helpful.
Austin, if you're set, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But I also want to tell the committee, please find some time to read these things. You've got a great review of what's going on, but I think we need to look hard at some of these things and make sure we comment on it. It's just who we are. We have to do it. Thanks.
Right. I would also like to thank Austin and Jen and the CPC members for their input tonight, and encourage everybody, all of us, to try to garner support and attendance at the forum. I believe at the September meeting, Austin issued a challenge to each of us to invite 10 people, personally 10 people, to the forum. And I'd like to have us stick to that too. So,
Yeah. If you've already reached out to 10, try to hit 10 more. There's no upper limit.
okay, we'll do that.
I'm going to ask a question that dates me. I'm still a printed text guy, maybe because I taught 19th century English poetry all my life. Is there going to be a printed version of this wonderful document in the future, or will it just be online? Once it's annotated, edited, and then finalized, have we determined if there will be any printed copies of the document, or will it just be online?
You know, that is a good question. I don't think it's within within JM Goldson's contract to provide any printed copies of this, but it is formatted for normal paper.
Yeah.
So it should be just very easily printable.
And we could do
Right.
that and bind it, and because we have administrative funds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good.
I wish we could do that. I think more people might read it if it were bound, more members of the community,
Mhm.
because
Well,
it is
yeah.
a very expressive document. You folks have done a fabulous job.
I appreciate
What
it.
I would say, let's plan on doing that, printing and binding, and then put it in the public library where it can be looked at, checked out, whatever, maybe a couple of copies. So let's make sure we put it on our agenda to have happen when it's done.
Yep.
I
Good
think-
point, Bill.
I think all members need a copy.
That's a good point too.
I still have a lot to learn.
I'm trying to get rid of paper stuff and not bring in more, but it's a good point. Good point, Bill. Thank you.
Yep.
We're
So
ready
the
to move on?
Yeah, the one last thing I want to really talk about is the November, December meeting. I know you all need to kind of pick a time for that. We're scheduled to come. So if you let us know when it is, we can be there.
Okay, so it won't be virtual. You'll be here in person.
I think it will be virtual. I mean,
Oh, okay.
will you
okay.
be meeting in person? I thought you were all virtual.
No, because we got in a big discussion on this at the last meeting. Virtual, in person, hybrid, and we ended up doing the virtual.
Mhm.
I'm going to suggest that because we normally would meet Thanksgiving Eve, we move it to early in December, but we can't conflict with a couple of other things. So I'm looking at, I'm thinking sometime between the 5th and 12th of December.
Okay, so we have,
Oh, and that's what yeah, I think November's off the list right now.
right, November's off. December, I would say, because we usually combine November and December together, because the December meeting falls. Actually, the December meeting would be on Christmas Day. And I don't think that's a good day for us to meet. So I would say maybe the week of the 10th, maybe have it the 11th. I think planning board, Pat, you're the 4th and 18th, right? The 1st and 3rd Wednesdays.
Yeah, we're first and third.
Okay, so we could do the 11th. Does that work for people?
It works for me. So let's do it. Let's do that and publish it and get feedback because, and it will be, I think in person's great.
Okay,
Works
that's
for
if
me
we can,
too.
right. I agree, but that's if we can do a hybrid. Because if Austin and Jen are going to be virtual, and we need to be able to have the public there too. I mean, tonight we had Janet at the start, which was good. If we have any public, they have to be able to have access. Whether they have to come in person, like we had the whole discussion the last time too, but we can talk about it.
So
Which way
this
we
will be
wanna go.
hybrid and we will be meeting in person? The committee will be meeting in person or not on the 11th?
We're not sure yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I have one question. Does the following week work for you all? The week of the 9th, 10th of December is looking kind of booked on me and Jen's schedule. We have a forum on the evening of the 11th and on the evening of the 10th and on the
Okay,
evening of the 12th.
the 18th is a planning board meeting. Which Pat chairs. I could do it Thursday night. That's less than a week before Christmas, so I don't know how people feel about that. We could possibly do December 5th. What a thought. I just can't do Tuesday nights, but any other night I can do.
Can we put a certain set of dates down and just put it out to the committee to make sure they're available and Austin and Jen? We could talk about it for an hour here tonight, but let's just
Right.
pick some dates, put it out and see who can make it.
Okay, and Austin, can you send to me dates that you and Jen are available?
Yes, I will send along some dates.
Okay, and we can send those out to the committee who can meet when.
Sounds good.
All right,
And will
perfect.
this be the presentation of the final report or what will this meeting be?
It will be the presentation of the next draft. So I'll come to you with a revised draft with some more things filled out. The final revision will take place over the holiday break, and we'll come back in January with the final
Okay,
plan.
okay.
So honestly, the January one might be better for us to be in person if you want to make that a public hearing of the final plan. I
Okay.
know
Let's do that.
Good idea.
Okay, that sounds good. Good suggestion, Austin.
All right.
And when we come back, you'll be making the edits we talked about tonight, and that draft will be the opportunity to make any changes to what we've. Oh, put my hand out of the way. Make changes to what we were want to have done, and then you take those changes, and that goes into the final, and hopefully that will be no more changes for the final. Correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yep. Good.
All right.
Okay. If
That
there's
is all I
nothing
had
else,
for you.
yep, Austin, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me.
Okay,
well.
and if you need anything, just give a shout.
All right. Likewise. Thank you. Have a great night, y'all.
Okay,
well,
Thanks,
thank you.
Austin.
Okay. Okay, that was good. I'll watch the recording to see what I missed. Moving on to the agenda.
Oh,
We're getting late. We're getting late, Gina. So let's speed it up.
Yep, that's what I'm doing. Applications received is still the Hansons. There's a purchase and sale in place. They're just working out final details. We anticipate having a revised application with money amounts in it and dates and such soon, and I hope very soon.
I'm going to add, there is a contract with the grant money that's been provided for the purchase of the conservation restriction on the town, that document requires certain documents to be done on a certain schedule. So the town's obligated to do that. And at that point, then a matching amount of money would be required. So one of the things that the town will be coming to us is for a matching amount of money. Town's obligated.
Right. And I believe from the offices meeting that we had with the acting town manager, there's a December 31st deadline for some of these reporting.
No, they start in January, but there's 3 or 4 things that have dollar amounts associated with them as deliverables that the town has to prepare. And then once that's done, and they can show that the money's been spent, or that we've got the match for it, that'll happen.
Right. I'll double check because I understand what you're saying, but I thought that what Blythe had said was that there was a December 31st deadline. She had asked if it could be extended.
That was on the Stiles and Hart.
I'm sorry.
I think.
I think you're right. No, maybe it was. I'm confused for a second. But bottom line, they're working on it, and hopefully we see a revised application soon. Okay, next is project update, Stiles and Hart. There's really no change since the last meeting. The work is still progressing. The landlocked parcel land is still being dealt with. So hopefully that's finished first. What Carlton and I have talked about, and I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before to the committee, is once everything's set, having a little grand, we can't say ribbon cutting grand opening because it's been there for years and years, but a grand reopening, a little celebration. The park, I go by it daily. There's never less than 4 or 5 cars there. So it's getting a lot of use. I've seen people with strollers, walking their dogs, fishing poles. So it's getting a lot of use. So that's good. Let's see my page here. Okay, the next one is Hemlock Drive windows. Carlton is
Yeah,
the liaison for that, so he can.
I met with the housing authority. They're in the process of getting a bid out and contract. They had another grant that came in, so the CPC money would be scoped for windows and doors in the backside of several of the buildings on Hemlock Drive. And basically they intend to activate award the contract in December with a start date in the spring. So that one's moving forward. Finally.
Okay, good. Thank you. Parthenon freeze. I know you kind of addressed that before, but.
Well, right now the process is that the freeze have come back and they're stored in the bottom of the memorial building. There's 6 of them. I've measured the dimensions where they would go, and the town manager, acting town manager, has asked for specifications sufficient for her to go for a bid to do the construction work to allow us of hanging of those frees. And that's in process. And after the elections, hopefully they'll get the bid in there and we can get it done. I also developed a hanging where we want to hang which ones of those, and I'd like to not tonight, but I'd like to go feed that past several of you, because we potentially could put all 6 freezes right in the entryway inside the sliding glass door and just before the hole in the floor. We could get all 6 up there, but that puts pretty crowded, and so I'm not sure what's the best place where the best place is to put those. Some of them, it may be that we can put 4 up there, and 2 of them have to find another home, but that's a work in progress. And the other side of the coin is that we have a budget of about once the preservation, once the preservation cost is paid for, we had an invoice, but apparently the invoice had never hit the books. And May and October have hit the books. But at that point, we'll have about $5,000 left for installation purposes. And the town may need to come back to us for more money to do construction work.
Thank you. Next, the rebinding of the records book has been completed. The book has been paid. We had to pay up front before they deliver the book. That's been paid. The town clerk's office opted to have additional things done that put it above and beyond what we had approved. And because it was additional work, that came out of their own budget. But so that's a done deal. We just need a final report on it.
I believe the report, I got an email from Tina Larson, the town clerk. I believe that's on site.
Right.
Book is
That's what I
on site.
said. It has been delivered. Yeah, she had sent that to both of us.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
So, yep, no problem. So it is here. We just need a final report from Josh. But it has been paid, so that's set. Moving, any discussion on any of those? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to project updates that are waiting final reports. Carlton and I are going to meet with Josh on some of the things he has to do. One is final reports, the townhouse, Old State Farm Trails, the Broad Street properties, and Summer Street property. So we're working on those. Hopefully we have them soon and we can close out the accounts.
Quickly on the townhouse, I'm expecting to get the report that the historic architect submitted to Mass Historic. I have requested a copy of that and he said he would send it to me. I haven't seen it yet.
Great, thank you. If there's no discussion on those, we'll move on to the Samuel Edson book. I've communicated with Richard Thorner. I'm sorry, I always want to call him Thurber. Richard Thorner. We had voted a couple of meetings ago to pay the postage to have the book sent to us. We've communicated. He is sending the book to me, sending it to my address, and we'll give it to the library to hold on to for their archival section. And then we just have to vote to do the whole payment for it, to buy the book. Mr. Thorner is not charging us for shipping. He's going to cover the cost himself to send it to us. So that was, I think, last week or the week before, he said he was sending it. So we should be getting it soon. Moving right along, potential new projects, Jenny Leonard Park. We've talked about that. There are multifunctional fields behind the middle school that's in discussion because the land it's owned by the town, leased to the school department. I know the last meeting there was concern about long-term lease. So that all needs to be worked out. Next thing, basketball courts at Legion Field and Scotland Field, both are in a drastic need of work, especially the Scotland courts. They've been there since God knows when. So they both need work. Then a usage study of recreational land. We talked that could possibly include a study of open space and rec land too. But this came about to one of the focus groups for recreation is to do a comprehensive usage study. about the way recreational facilities in Bridgewater are laid out. I think that's it for, that I know of, for potential new projects. If anybody has any, just shout them out. Okay, hearing none. Let's see, new business. Carlton,
I've got one piece. I did a boo-boo and approved a plaque that we had paid for funding. I had a word that I misspelled that was caught by an astute English professor. And basically I've got an estimate to replace that plaque and one other one for the display booths in the library that I miscounted. There should have been 7. I counted 6. So I've got an estimate from Bridgewater Trophy, not tonight, but I would like to ask the committee next meeting to approve the payment of that redo of that plaque. It's a little under $500.
okay, good. We'll be sure to put it on the agenda. Due to the late time, which is whatever time it is, we can defer committee liaison reports. If the committee feels to defer them, or if anybody has anything important to say for their committee, can jump right in. I know Parks and Rec doesn't. Anybody else? Okay, I guess we'll jump right past those. Public hearing. We were calling it a public hearing. We're actually handling it at a public forum, as J.M. Golson had said. And we'll do the public hearing itself in January when we get the final report. But the agenda said public hearing. It should be public forum. November 4th, 6:00 p.m. and the Zoom link is there. And again, I hope everybody encourages everybody they know to attend. Public comment. There's no public that's lasted this long tonight. Next meeting date, we talked about. Austin will send out some dates. They're available. We'll send them out to the committee to see what's the best night for everybody. And that's it. Unless somebody has anything else to add. If not, Carlton, did you have something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I thought you were raising it.
Sorry, I'm just preening.
Okay. So if we have nothing else, I just want to thank everybody for being here, for engaging in the plans and presentations that Austin got. And other than that, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Second.
Okay, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:45.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night.